Mori hesitated, but then followed. Lorcan pushed open a heavy oak door. As it squeaked open, a swarm of ravens and hawks flew out from the inside. Some of the birds were similar to those that had attacked them at Roy's place, the Yakuza's hawks. But these birds didn't seem to be aggressive, they simply fled the house. "What did we just open?" Lorcan mumbled to himself. In response to his questions, bullets rained down on them. Roy grabbed Mori and dove behind a column. Lorcan covered Orla, running toward the other side. "Are you hit?" Orla asked. Lorcan shook his head. He scanned her up and down and was pleased she wasn't injured. 5 men emerged from a dark corner of the room with guns in their hands. Under the dim light from the torch on the wall, their scaled skin glowed, and their lizard eyes sparkled with excitement in anticipation of a fight. Lorcan made eye contact with Roy, who was taking cover behind the column across the corridor. They nodded at each other in agreement. Lorcan slid across the floor from left to right, and Roy did the same from right to left. The 5 lizard men were sluggish in reaction and were gunned down by 2 rounds of laser beams from Lorcan and Roy. Their bodies dropped on the floor and began to disintegrate, ultimately evaporating into thin air. Roy and Lorcan approached their remains as the last of their body parts vanished, and all that remained on the floor were black puddles full of swimming worms. "Xyloc creatures. I haven't seen them before, but I've heard of them." "Say again?" Roy asked. "They came from a universe called Xyloc. Kieran told me it's full of multiversal outlaws. When the Xyloc creatures die, their bodies evaporate into puddles of maggots and worms." They searched for other reptiles, but found none alive. Orla followed the sound in her mind, entering a small door which led down to a basement. As the door opened, the crying sound stopped. On the wall, they saw 16 people, shackled. Orla searched for the locks to pick, but she found none. The steel chains were cemented into the wall. All 16 people were still alive. A man in his late 30s looked at Roy, snarling and saying something in a language that made no sense. Roy didn't understand, but he could guess as to the meaning. He spoke to the man in English. "I am not who you think I am. We have just arrived, and we have nothing to do with why you're chained up here." The man didn't seem to understand what Roy was saying, and continued his verbal assault. A woman from the right corner uttered something to the man that calmed him down. They thought she had translated what Roy had said to the man because she turned toward Roy and spoke in English, saying, "One of the men who captured us and brought us here looks like you." "I don't see any resemblance between me and the reptile men we were just killed upstairs." "They're not the ones who captured us. They're just guarding us. They have been locked in here with us for quite some time." "How long have you been here?" Orla asked. "A few days, or maybe a week. We lost track of time." The woman yanked at her chains. "They're buried into the wall, just like the gatekeeper at gate 313. Lorcan clenched his jaw and searched for something he could use to free the people. Veering off to a different wing, he noticed the handle of a small compartment. He touched it. There was no movement. The rusty handle looked as if it hadn't been opened for a long time. He jiggled it and pulled. All Lorcan remembered was a sudden and unstoppable suction into darkness. Spectrum of Lies, Book 3. Cheat a Sorcerer. Indigo Stone. By D. N. Leo. Narrated by Claire Lindsay. Part 1. Chapter 1. Heat. That was all he could feel. A wave of fire that carried incinerating heat was flying toward him. Lorcan stared at it as if it was a movie clip shown in slow motion. Once that fire brushed over him, Lorcan knew all that would be left of him was a pile of ashes. He was stuck beneath a collapsed brick dome. Half of his body was buried, and his legs were crushed. He didn't think there were any bones left intact, so even if the bricks and stones didn't crumble down upon him, he wouldn't be able to move out of the way of the fire anyway.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?